Good morning, welcome back to Reaper Pro Tips with me, your host, Anne, and disembodied hands, Quindy, Justin, and John. No, the Postal Service has not come through, but I decided to work on a wing today because I wanted to try something. So, no, I have my primer plate in here, and it's totally reeking up my area, so I'm going to open my door. 1 second. I don't need to inhale any more primer fumes than necessary. But yeah. The painting of this figure, cute as your pun is, Kodiak, will not be complete. This is not a figure we're going to do to completion. That was actually contingent when I asked Ron. When Ron asked me if I wanted a dragon, I'm like, do I have to finish it? And he's like, no. And I'm like, all right, done. So, yeah, there goes your pun. Pooh. But yeah, the Postal Service has not come through. The base was just a placeholder when I realized, I need to finish priming this wing. And then I was going to bring the wing in. So yes, Ron is probably avoiding watching anything because of you, Nomad Seek. So I have some news, guys. In 19 weeks, I might have a puppy. Our puppy's our future puppy's mom went into heat yesterday, finally. So now it's like maybe 2 weeks till the breeding, and then 9 weeks gestation, and 8 weeks till puppy. So we don't know yet, because I really want a girl, and if there are no girls, then it's off, most likely. Unless I really fall in love with a little boy puppy, but that's rare. That's rare. But there's a future puppy. Like, the universe has started to move toward puppydom. Yeah, let's not. I've already got enough, issues with my body mini painter. I don't need furry lungs. Not really my idea of a good time. Chaarmondar's not a pun. Kodiak's pun was this model will drag on. But yeah, so I may get a puppy. So this is the first step, right? This is the first step. Now the dog has to have a successful heat. And we have to have a successful breeding on time. And then we get to wait the horrible 5-week waiting period, which is the amount of time you wait before you do an ultrasound. If you're a crazy good breeder like my gang is. You actually ultrasound to confirm pregnancy, and then some people do an x-ray to confirm count. But anyway, so there, I might have a puppy in 19 weeks. 19 weeks seems like not a lot of time to prepare for puppy. So we're gonna do weird stuff on this dragon. Just warning y'all. Let me make sure that I've managed to clean up. I can see a couple of little bits I managed to not clean up. This is a 3D print, so there's just a couple of little boops. That's all. And they're hard to see on the base gray, so sometimes I don't get them all until I've got a primer on the figure. And then I'm like, oh noes. Those things need to be cleaned off. Yeah, I think we're good. There's a little one down here. They hide a lot. So as those of you who do 3D printing, you know that your little vent things can hide. Now on a scaly dragon, it's not like it's super important. I'm going to start Stumpy. I'm gambling. It's funny. David yesterday was like, really? You're putting your faith in Ron? And I'm like, no, I'm putting my faith in Trenchworks. There's a big difference. If Trenchworks said that they mailed out the Stumpy parts, that means they mailed out the Stumpy parts. I have faith in David Baker that he would do this for me. Yeah, I always use I'm terrible about. I use knives for everything with cleaning, Kodiak. I have for years. I've had painters lecture me on what a bad habit it is, and I still do it. I'm going to mix up a little bit of brush on primer just to touch up some spots. The other thing about this is that this wing doesn't fit great into the body. It really needs a little bit of adjustment. So I'm gonna have to take a closer look at it because it fits in like this, tilted downward, so the wings are swept up and back, which is cool. But it's a little bit thick in one of these areas. I need to do a test and see where the contact points are kind of getting in the way. Or I'm just going to have to resolve to pin it, sculpt it, and generally, like, totally find a way to stick it in where it stays if I decide to put the wings on. Again, we're not sure. I'm not sure that I will finish this. I certainly won't be finishing it on stream, most likely, just because it's just too long. You guys get so bored. Dragons are boring. News at 10. Dragons are boring. They are boring because it's scales, and then it's some scales, and then it's even more scales. And it's all the same color, or in this case, the same 2 or 3 colors. I'm going to be doing this one kind of funky, and we're going to see how it looks. I have an idea in my head. Yeah, I've managed to slash myself. The scar's pretty much gone at this point, but I used to have a really nice, I don't know, it's still there. Wonder if you guys can see it. See that pale line? Yeah, that's where my biggest knife wound was. I was foolishly watching Lord of the Rings while doing prep work on a Balrog because, you know, inspiration and all that. And I got very distracted and the knife slipped. And then I was sitting on my mom's brand newly upholstered couch because I was at visiting my parents at the time, holding my arm above my head so I wouldn't bleed on the new upholstery. It's funny. They look good on the table, Lorgrim, but it's not worth putting you guys through weeks of the same topics on stream, I'm afraid. We discovered this with the last time I did this. So this will be a somewhat focused dragon lesson, and if I, like, get through a good part of this and we still don't have the parts for the head and stuff, then we'll just kind of put it on. We'll put it on hiatus and go back to other stuff. But really, I just want to kind of go over various parts of the dragon. I think I've got everything now. Various parts of the dragon and talk about tackling various parts of the dragon. The first big takeaway from dragons, if you want to paint them quickly, is to either airbrush or wet blend. You want to establish your ground color very fast if you can, because it's such a big thing. Yeah, exactly, Mini Painter. That's exactly it. And that's why you don't see really high-level painters do a lot of dragons, because it's just, it leeches the life out of your soul after a while. Unless you're doing something interesting enough to keep you intrigued. Uh-oh, I see another. I bet I could just sit here and find problems. Like, now that I've primed it, I'm going to see all sorts of stuff. But, so, we're going to go green with this dragon, but we're also going to go blue. I want to do a green to blue fade. So green on the upper, more toward the light parts, and blue shading down into the shadows. So I'm going to do a little bit of tryouts. It's between dragon green and brilliant green, really, for the kind of mid. And then I'm wondering if I want to go up to Naga or if that's going to look weird. So I'm going to use, because I also want to go up to like a different color for my highlights. So I'm going to do something weird here. Yes. Well, you know what, Babel? That's why I said learn to airbrush. If you airbrush, you can do dragons with like a minimum of hatred, and they'll look great, and you can concentrate on the fun parts and paint them in a much, much faster manner, which is always appreciated. Yes. Yeah, I know, that was great advertising, wasn't it? Don't pay attention to this, Reaper. Look somewhere else. So dragon green's a little bluer and brilliant green is a little bit warmer. You would look at them and you'd think, you can see it on screen though. You can see that the brilliant is a little bit lighter. This is more of kind of a true medium green, and then the dragon is just a little bit more blue. So I'm gonna kind of, what I really need to determine is how my transition is going up. I know I'm probably going down with either Ritterlich or Ultramarine Shadow. Both of these are very dark paints. The Ritterlich is more of a neutral blue, and the Ultramarine is more purpley blue. So that, I'll have to play around with that and see what happens. Maybe you don't have a soul. Yes, if you like the monotony, if you do like seek that that particular zen, like Cornico, then you can be happy and still paint dragons. But yeah, there's no pressure, right? With dragons, you don't have to like switch up your technique or switch colors, or you're pretty much painting the same darn thing. So I'm gonna just squeeze out like a little bit of paint. I'm gonna get my dragon green. What I want to do is kind of test my highlight color against it. This is going to be a real weird one, guys, because I have an odd color scheme in mind, and I just want to try it. So green to blue fade, and then I want to bring the highlights up to turquoise, which is a total, like, not intuitive progression. So I'm just, like, going to see what I can get mixing a bit and see if I like it. And if I do like it, then we're gonna go for it. So let's grab, let's go crazy and use ultramarine. Oh, come on, David Peterson. You were trolling me. Houndstooth. Yeah, you should be scared because I have a Sherlock Holmes bust, and I did think about doing the houndstooth on that hat. Like, it's one of there are a couple of good Sherlock Holmes busts out on the market, and because they're the bigger scale, you can absolutely do it if you have the fine motor control, but you're probably going to want to just, like, put yourself out of your misery after you do it for that much. Like, I just think of doing it on that entire hat, and I'm just like, ugh. Polka dot tartan. I could do that. I do stippling a lot. So polka dots I have no fear of polka dots. Polka dots are my usual MO. All right, so we've got these weird colors that I want to use for a shadow, a midtone, and a highlight, and it's totally odd, right? So my hope is that this is going to look interesting and really unusual, and it's hopefully going to save me from a boring dragon. What's odd about this one isn't the green to blue transition, but that I'm going back toward blue for the highlights. So it's probably going to look like it's under a cold light source. It's going to be interesting. It's kind of why I went with the dragon green to start, because it's more of a blue-green. It's just got a little bit more blue in it than the brilliant green does. So it's also got better boring dragon drill. It's also got better coverage, dragon does. So let's get a little bit of water into the highlight and the shadow, and I think I'm going to do a mixture of the green and the highlight and see what it looks like, because this is my test. Let's see how it works. It is definitely, like, dragons are terribly boring. Unless you can take steps to spice them up, but the fact remains that it's only spicing them up for like one surface, because you're like, oh wait, I can do some cool horns here, and I can do some cool this and that, but then you're like, oh wait, I have to do the other side. Oh wait, I have to do this twice more because there's another wing. So yeah, it kind of gets like that. You kind of get to the point where you're like, all right, unless you're painting a rainbow dragon where you can like cascade through red to yellow to green to blue to purple, like, then you're probably okay. I'm gonna add just a bit of green to this just to see what it turns into. I think this is gonna work, guys. I think it's gonna work. Now we're gonna go back. All right, I think we're gonna be okay. This might actually do a thing. Now I can thin my base coat down a bit more than I normally do, just because I'm working over primer and not Bones plastic. So I'm working a little thinner. And we're going to just block in. I'm going to block in this entire limb. Yeah. But I'm going to block in everything except the membranes, just because the membranes I usually will do in a different color. You don't have to do it that way. So I did mix a little bit of my Spectral Glow into this green. So it's reading a little bit lighter. Let's go up here. And this green is undoubtedly going to fade into bone color out here, but since I'm not quite there yet, and all of these spines and stuff also will be a bone color, but it's just easier when you're doing your base to not have to worry about all that. The great thing about acrylics is that unlike oils, you can come back and paint right over what you've done already without worrying about it. So don't worry about any blurfs either. I mean, it's nice if you can be neat because it saves you work down the road, but... So the cool thing about these scales is that they kind of look like they're trying to grow into these horns. Like you really, if you look at them, these scales coming out are the same as this horn. And so then you can ask yourself if you could do something cool, like maybe this horn stays like green colored, or maybe it just starts to go kind of bone colored toward the end. Like the scales are growing organically into spines, which is pretty cool. Now I have to remember my wing positioning, which is why I actually put it this way on the table, because it's actually positioned more like this, where it is, it's coming up and back from the dragon. I tested the fit before I grabbed it so that I could remind myself of that. So we got that and that. I'm just going to bring that out a little bit. I'll blend this in eventually. Yeah, kind of like keratin. Morning, Daffodweir. Now I'm going to just take some water and blend that. Taking a bit of water and just blending out that edge so it's a little easier to blend, visually blend something else into it. Now when I come up here, this scale is more flat, but this protrusion here actually has like a grain to it as if it is a claw. So I'll factor that in when I get up there. I'm going to grab a little more water and fade these guys in. Just because I don't like that hard edge. Although it is very Larry Elmore. And I do love Larry's Dragons. Like I'm staring at a green dragon right over on my, a print right over there. That is a Larry Elmore dragon. Because I love the companion set box cover, and I cannot lie. All right, so just kind of getting a little bit of a fade. Obviously, I'm going to be painting over this at some point. I just really don't want any like hard edges. This way, if I want to, I can kind of fade this color into the green. I've already got the basis of it. Yeah, Larry's bases are awesome. I don't know yet, Kerniko. The wing sails I'm kind of out on. I usually either go very dark or very light with them. And sometimes I will do the back part a solid color and the under part a different color, depending. The under part I almost always believe should be a light color, just because, you know, birds tend to go that way. I tend to do bird type stuff on them. Take that kind of what birds have as kind of my cue. I'm going to block in these guys. I'm using a slightly bigger brush so I can get this done faster. Use as big of a brush as you can get away with for base coating. Like, and still, as big as you can get away with and still manage to hit things fairly neatly. This is another claw that probably becomes a horn, but, or another scale that probably becomes a claw, but I'm going to come in here and hit it anyway. There's a lot of scales that are very confused about their identity on this model. So here, again, a little bit of green with the water. Yeah, it's not super dramatic, but it is an interesting color. So it's totally different from what I usually do. So that's why we're doing it. Because sometimes novelty is really where it's at. Especially when you've been streaming for almost 500 episodes. I got a little bit, not quite enough water on my brush here, so I'll come back. Thinking about doing a cool oil painting trick on this dragon. Don't know if I'll be able to do it. Obviously, I ordered some of the new hobby oil paints that Scale 75 put out. And I've got some oil paints. I dug out my old oil paints as well. I've got some Winsor & Newton Artisan water mixable oil color. But So I'm essentially looking back over my my various books on traditional painting, and there is a cool technique that I think probably people like Michael Proctor and Banshee are probably very familiar with because they do very saturated color in the shadows. But it's called breaking color. So any traditional painters out there among you know what breaking color is. And there are various versions of it, but one of the versions of it used by Impressionists and some other precursors to the Impressionists, it's essentially laying down, like, if you lay down different hues of green all together, it will make the green look more intense, like it's a visual kind of illusion thing. So the way the eye sees color, there was a lot of like kind of people doing research into how the eye sees color, and people like the Impressionists picked that up. Do I ever stop doing a model and plan on going back to it later? Oh, all the time, Kodiak. Boy, and I'll tell you, my fiance, David Diamondstone, he is the master of this. I have tried to stop doing it over the years. Because I find that it's like, if I really stop on a model, like if I don't go back to it within a few months, it's likely I'll never come back to it. But David has come back to models that he started painting years ago and finished them. So it's just part of his painting routine. Seurat came and did it after the Impressionists. Seurat kind of morphed that into his pointillism. In fact, it's all about, that's what his pointillism is all about, is using analogous colors to create the illusion of different colors and of vibrancy and complexity. It's very, I love pointillism, so I could go on and on. But anyway, it occurred to me that a dragon is one of the places that you could use breaking color. And the reason is you could use pointillism in the shadows with different colors of blue very easily because the scales already imply that there's texture. So if you wanted to try it out, then yes, Mini Painter, absolutely. Yeah, I often will do that if you look back on some of my previous dragons, although I haven't done a ton on the stream, but I tend to blend it out almost to flesh color at the very middle. That's something I have done just because as it gets thinner and more stretched, I imagine that, you'd be able to see through it more. You'd see light go through it more. So yeah, absolutely. That is a cool technique. But yeah, so it occurred to me that, yeah, I could use breaking color maybe on a dragon. It would maybe make sense. I'm going to run out of green. I need to remix. I'm going to remix my green before I run out of it. Sorry about your internet. Mine is also a little dicey today. Be aware, guys. So we'll see what we can do. 4 drops. And I'm going to use just a tiny dab of my Phantom Glow. Let's see how that comes out. That's about right. Yep, that's about right. Good. Where is there's my water bottle. But yeah, so unless you're doing kind of a pointillist scheme on a miniature, which some people have done pretty successfully, or an impressionistic one, which is harder, I think. A lot of models probably breaking color would look odd, unless you made it really subtle. But because, of course, oil painting is made for brush strokes. Like, it's kind of the essence of oil painting. Although there are some people, especially in fantasy art, like Rowena Morrill, whose work I really like, who never leaves brush strokes. Her pieces are, like, really beautifully, like, realistically done. And of course, in portraiture, often you'll get a lack of brush strokes, at least certainly on the focus of the picture, right? So you get a lot of that where people will do like a very smooth treatment, and then as they go out from the focal point of the picture, they'll start roughening it up because it's not as important, and it helps focus the eye on like the face and the manner of the figure. So you'll see that a lot in portraiture. And this is why I always tell you guys, like, I get a lot of inspiration from traditional art. David and I go to galleries and we go to art museums a fair bit. And I always feel like I come away from that having some interesting thoughts about things I could try on miniatures. I don't think I actually do want to thin that more. I was just thinking about it. So I'm faded out. I don't have quite a very solid color on this particular strut, so I'm going to go in and redo it. Got a little bit too much of my color bled out into that pull that I did to pull it up the wing, the fade. Doo-doo-doo. Yeah, squirrels win, for sure. Color theory and painting media. Yes! Yes, that is the beauty of this hobby, Babel. Yes. That's the wonderful thing about this hobby. Like, a lot of people, there are so many people out there, man, who don't think they have any creative or artistic talent. Then they discover miniature painting, and it opens up a whole new world. Do I have a bigger brush here? Nah, I'll stick to this one. Because it kind of is, it gives you an opening. Like, you don't have to worry about drawing something on the blank page. You don't have to deal with the blank canvas. You have a sketched in, you've kind of got a paint by number, a 3D paint by number presented to you as a miniature. And that makes it a little bit easier. It makes it a little more accessible. And then people start to think, oh, I can do this. You know, I can learn this. And it's a wonderful way to get into the arts. Like, it gets underestimated a lot, I think. Like, I try to explain this to 2D art people, and they just kind of go and stare at me, like, blankly. Like, it's like, you guys, you know, traditional arts have a problem. They're, like, losing ground in a lot of ways, I think, to digital art. I feel like the traditional artists should be a little bit more, you know, trying to get people into and teach people the traditional arts, right? Mini painting does that because, you know, you aren't digitally painting a miniature unless you are, you know, 3D sculpting it, or you get the 3D file and you decide to color it, which you totally could do. But we're all about traditional media here, so I kind of feel, I was saying to David the other night, I wonder if in another 20 years, like, miniature painting is one of the last, like, one of the holdouts of traditional art, you know, like, will so many people go over to digital that the traditional arts will be kind of struggling, except in a very fine art kind of setting. And I hope not, because, you know, I personally really like traditional art, and I like pencils, and I like, you know, like the stuff that David Peterson does, hand-drawn, all that stuff. Hey, Sarducci, how's it going? Feel free to ask questions about any of it, Babel. I'm in it. I went to school for art, so. Interesting. They have a Dale Rowney color wheel. So, how does the Dale Rowney color wheel differ, Kuroniko? I'm gonna put you on the spot. Yeah, I mean, both traditions need to stay alive, obviously. Like, digital art can do some really cool things, and I love how, you know, you're painting with light, essentially, with digital, right? It's super neat that way. It can really create beautiful things. But I also have a deep love, just because I grew up with it, I have a deep love of the traditional arts as well. And there are just really fantastic, just the visceralness of it, just playing with it on the model or on a canvas, it just feels a little bit different to me. And so, and of course, seeing with painting mediums that give you a lot of texture, as sometimes you can use, often are using oils or acrylics these days, you know, then the texture is part of the experience, which is something you don't get necessarily in 3D art until we get to the point where you have a program that will let you sculpt a canvas, paint the canvas, and print the canvas. Then we'll be in a whole new world. Yeah, David Peterson does he does. I love watching him do commissions. Like, I could just watch him ink a picture like forever. Like, I just love it. All the lines are so perfect, and he gets the weight of them perfect because they have varying weight. You know, it's just he's so good. He was on here earlier. Taunting me. Oh, okay. It twirls? It's the one I use. Okay. All right. Yep, that's what I thought. That's exactly it, Sarducci. Thank you. Thank you for keeping me up to date on that, because I didn't have time to watch it. But I knew that he was impressed by Reaper. And yeah, that's just the thing. When you're used to that thicker paint, you understand how Vallejo handles, and then you just prefer it just because. But if you do the opposite and you spend time with Reaper and you learn it, it's every bit as good. Yes. Good, good, good. Thank you. That makes me happy. Yeah, good, good, good. Yeah, if you ever see him on, I don't know if he streams or if he just does video, but if he ever streams and you're on it, tell him the designer of Master Series Paint says thanks. She's happy to know she did a good job. I'm always happy when the line, gets tested like that very impartially and stands up. Like, because we are very different. The Master Series Paint's very different from the other mini paint on the market. Like, so it makes me happy when we're still competitive. I'm sure it will be, Turpade. There's still be some things that you get with some mediums that you can't get with a 3D print, but eventually I expect 3D printed art will be like a big, awesome thing. Like, especially once you get to the point where you can, like, swap, like, you're swapping in different transparencies of resin, you're able to put LEDs behind things, you're able to play with light that way. Like, you'll be able to do some really cool things with 3D printed art, I think. I'm sure people are already working on it. Because it's just a new medium. Anytime there's a new medium, it's exciting. Gets artists excited. We love new stuff, just like mini painters. That's why mini painters and artists go hand in hand. Traditional artists, I should say. Other like 2D artists. But of course, if you're 3D printing, you become a 3D artist. Oh, nice. Yeah, it's very cool. At least somebody I hear things like that, Sarducci, and it just like, I'm like, yay, somebody out there actually appreciates what I've done. Because if you do that deep dive into the paint and you really, really analyze it, you really see like what we're trying to do with it, right? So, love it. Love it. Doing my happy little, painting a stripe of essentially a wash down here, then grabbing some more water and just blending it in. Sometimes with some primers that can get a little bit wonky because the primer, some primers can be a little bit hydrophobic with pure water. They want the binder of the paint there to kind of make it stick. But so glazing over primer, which is essentially kind of what I'm doing, is a little bit wonky sometimes. But anyway, we've almost base coated our green of our wing, and then we can start putting some blues in and see how it works. Yeah, we're talking about that Agent Marvel. Agent Marvel. Apparently he really, really liked Reaper. Reaper crushed every other paint. I like it when my paint crushes other paint. It's just, more than anything, Reaper paint is unusual in the market. Like, Did they try Scale 75 Tube? Scale Color Artist? Well, Master Series isn't perfect for wet palette either. Like, the fact that it has a thinner consistency, like a more fluid consistency, means that technically it's not as ideal for wet palette in a lot of ways. But see, now, if they had actually used well palette, then they would have seen even more like what it can do. I'm just essentially, I don't like a hard line from the strut of the wing into the membrane. Like, I don't like a hard edge. So I decided to just do a quick kind of like painting with a wash and then using water to kind of thin it out and blend it in. It's not a perfect blend, and I have some demarcation lines over here, but then when I put the color of the membrane, whatever I decide to do, over the top, if it's a lighter color, I'll be able to kind of hypothetically blend it in a little bit, like leave a little bit of that showing. That's what I'm doing. Kodiak. It's just a kind of a thing I've gravitated toward. Like, in past dragons, I have done a hard line with the wing membranes, but this time I've just like decided I didn't want that, like just kind of that boring hard line, that I wanted to blend the color out a little bit. So yeah, I'm just blending with water. Like, I'm thinning the paint down. I'm grabbing some water on my brush without even rinsing the brush, so it still has color in it. And I'm pulling it back, blending it in. Just doing a little bit of that. Fun stuff. If I decide I don't like it, it's easy to paint over it because it's so thin. But it doesn't take very long. Dragons are a whole different beast, literally. So, you know, I don't often get a chance to like paint on something this big or broad, and so it's fun to play around. Yeah, and it might not keep it. Like, I might end up painting over it, but for right now, I'm like, well, if I put a lighter color here, maybe I'll keep a bit of that green. Maybe I can keep it showing through and stuff. Okay, so a bunch of mini painting lines in apple barrel. Regular scale color, so not the artist tube. I was going to say, I feel like the artist tube paints are very much a good fit match for Master Series. They are my favorite. I don't use any other Scale 75 paint, but I use that. Now we'll get this outside strut, and then we'll get some shadows put in. We'll play around with our blue. And then we'll like start bringing up some weirdo highlights and see how it all looks. And this is big and spiky enough that I'm just holding it in my hand. Like, I could hold it in bubble wrap, but I won't until I've got more paint on it. The little spines are going to catch in the bubble wrap. And I usually hold big things like this in bubble wrap because I want to avoid rubbing the paint off, and it helps. I need to dig out a big piece of bubble wrap, though. Squirrels. Hey, we were just talking about squirrels. Squirrels gnawed through our sprinkler lines when it got really dry, so now I have a bowl of water out to appease the squirrel gods. And this is just an excuse for me to get a fountain. I need to make time to go to Home Depot. All right, so we've got one layer on that, and then I'll do a bit of a blend. Boop. It is awkward to hold the wings, but it is even more awkward to hold the wings if you try to paint them after you've attached them to the dragon. So keep that in mind, folks. Because that's why I don't attach them to the dragon right away, because painting them in my hand is much easier. As awkward as it is still much easier. I am actually going to paint the wraparound here real quick. This area. There. Is there an exception for painting Rocky? Like as far as dragons being boring or wings? Ah, I see. Wings. You could probably attach Rocky's wings. He's tiny enough. But trying to paint a dragon with the wings attached and trying to like, especially when you're trying to like paint details where there's texture on the wings and things like that you may want to highlight or shade extra. trying to do that in a scenario where you can't actually just simply hold the surface in your hand, where you're holding onto a dragon where the wing is attached to it, the dragon just gets in the way, frankly. The rest of it does. So I always paint wings separately, and then I attach them, and then I do any green work that I need to do, and then I paint over that green work. And I just don't worry too much. I like our black squirrels here. They're very pretty. All right, we'll just get that covered up, and then we'll get into more fun stuff. There. Ta-da! We'll leave the back of the wing for later. You know what? Yeah, I don't even care if they have nice open wings. I would much rather hold this than an entire dragon. I mean, even holding this, I'm knocking stuff over. Yeah, I just don't. Need to do one more coat. My second coat can be a little bit thinner than my initial coat if I want. Because I don't really have much to cover up. It's just I want a nice solid color. And then we'll see how our blue looks to shade with. Maybe there is a squirrel uprising. Like maybe squirrels have a secret hive mind and we don't know about it. Like I don't think they're smart enough to like really coordinate an uprising, but if they had a hive mind, they secretly were all plugged in to the same squirrely goals. I could see it. All right, that's nice and solid. Excellent. All right. Now I want to get my blue figured out. It's not a very smart hive mind. So your friend couldn't take a squirrel in a fair fight. See, this goes with what I keep telling David about attack geese. I could not take an attack goose in a fair fight. I am pretty sure. The goose would chase me around the parking lot. Until David interrupted it by giving it a solid kick to the torso. Wasn't that from Paranoia? The Paranoia role-playing game? Squirrels were messengers from a higher intelligence. Let's see here. Oh. Missed a spot. 1 second. All right, now I need something to put this on. Hey, Noli, give me your bubble wrap. All right, so now I need to remember what side is up. It's going to be up like this. So now I'm going to look at my shadows and my highlights. Have a lot of shadows here. Pretty sure it's like that. Let's get over on my big light. So if you really want to see highlights and shadows and you want to use your lamp to do so, got to make sure you've got pretty much a unidirectional lamp going on. So now we can see that the majority of the light is falling here and here and here and up on the top here. There's a lot of shadows. I am getting some side light from my window. It's overcast day out, so it's not too bright, but that different quality of light over there is different. We are getting a little bit of light coming down here from the overall lamp. So things that stick out pretty much and stuff here, but anything covered by those folds is not going to get a lot of light. There we are. So shadows, let's get this blue figured out. I'm going to tackle this downside because this is the most interesting part. I'm also like getting green all over myself because it's what I'm all about. Let's try these little scales here. Okay, that's way too hard. Blue is can be really strong. Even though it's not like got great coverage, it can very much surprise you with how strong it is. So I'm thinning down my ultramarine shadow a lot. Well, I want to keep the green though. The point here is to actually produce kind of a faux color shift. Yes, that's actually what I'm doing, Glocker. Dark blue fan out from the finger webs. Yeah, we'll see. Like, there's a lot of shadow in here, so there isn't going to be a lot of light falling in this area. Mostly today we're about doing kind of a color test to see if I can do a dark blue to green to aqua kind of fade and get it to work. So I gotta see if this blue's too strong. It may be that I can't get the blue to be what I want until I throw some white under it. So let's do that. Because the problem with putting blue as a shadow to green is that you lose a lot of the blue. So I may need to add a little bit of white to that blue to give it a bit of coverage. Because otherwise it's just going to shade. Here, let's get down. It's just going to act as a shadow. Let me get this in focus. Blook. So I've got my blue thinned way down, about 1 to 1. And mostly when I paint it in here, you're going to lose a lot of the blue identity. It's just going to look dark. Probably it'll end up looking kind of a dark teal. If I want it to be more than that, I'm going to have to add some white to my blue. If I want more of a solid color. If I want it kind of weird. No, I did not get stumpy. I just decided I would start on the wing. I wanted to play with the wing today. Twisted Oma. So I'm going to add just a little bit of white to my blue. The other thing is I'm putting like kind of a very dark blue down, and just like very light colors, if you're not taking up a lot of space, you lose the color. Like you end up not really seeing the color. That's a little bit better. Now I can see a bit of blue. I'm going to go over a lot of these lower parts here. Then I'm going to start shading around. Now, one way to do this very fast, if you wanted to, would have been to wet blend the green and the blue together. If you did that, you could set up all this in your first coats and then spend the time messing with it. But I want to see what I can do to get this blue to look blue. It's quite dark on the screen too. That's the other thing. I wasn't expecting it to look so dark. So now I'm thinking maybe I need kind of a transition color mixed from the dragon green and the blue together to give me, and you could also put a wash on this if you wanted. There's a lot of faster ways to paint this. Let's just put it that way. So that's interesting. Yeah, I'm painting between the scales, Kodiak. There are lots of, like I said, there's faster ways to do this. You could do a wash, but then you'd have to worry about highlighting everything. If you did a blue wash over the screen, you'd take it way dark. You'd lose a lot of that green. I'm painting between the big scales for the most part. Kind of want to... I'm going to take some water and kind of spread this out. Remember, this is and painting a dragon. Although I have done the fast way. I have done wet blending on dragons. If you go watch dragons, the Dance of Death that I did a long, long time ago when I was still at Reaper on site before the pandemic. We spent a long time painting the Dance of Death. Long time. And toward the end, I mean, I was even speeding it up toward the end by using a lot of wet blending. It still took a long time. But yeah, when I'm like playing with a color scheme, I want to kind of get down to the micro level with it. So I am painting between the scales. Because I want to see if the color scheme works. So I feel like I want to do it kind of tight and get an idea of how to make it look the way I want it to look in my head. I'm going to actually try something. I'm going to do white underpainting instead. And then I'm going to put some blue over it. You just managed to miss all the boring stuff, Shadow Raven. So if I put white down, then I can get more of a vibrant blue instead of losing the blue. So now I'm wondering if I should essentially, if I should have just dot painted the scales or if I should paint a slightly lighter blue. Because I kind of want the blue to show up a little bit more. So I'm going to kind of block some of this white in and then cover it with blue. But I want it to still, the problem is that I want the color of the blue to show through, and it's not really showing very well. Because over the green, it just wants to go dark. But if I seed in a little bit of that white, then maybe I can get this color to look a little more true, like that dark blue. Hello, Corsair. How's it going? So what's happening here is when you have like a color that is pretty and intense but transparent, if you put it over a darker color, you're going to lose a lot of the actual color of that blue or whatever color you're messing with. And the only way to kind of counter that is to put down some white to pick up that color again. And this is true no matter what you're painting. And it might have been a better call, actually. Here, and we can even try this. It might have been a better call to do an area just in blue and bring it up to green. Like, that may have been actually a much better idea that I only just now got. So you know what? We're going to try it. Actually, let me grab a more full-bodied version of Ultramarine Shadow. Put an extra drop in there. Lost a lot of coverage because I thinned it down. So we're gonna play around, guys, because I don't have to paint this whole dragon. And if I do like this, then maybe I'll spray over the other side and do it a different way. So let's try this. Let's try putting down blue first, then going up to green, and seeing if that works better. Because the blue is more transparent, it's going to look brighter over the white undercoat. The green is higher coverage. It is more opaque. So I may be able to get my my deep blue and then put the green over the top. So we'll see if this works. I'm just going to do this a little bit. I'll do these last little spikes up here. And then we'll see if it works the other way around. Maybe I've been doing it in reverse all this time. Maybe I needed to get my blue down first to keep it. So I want that. I want to darken it a bit though. We're here to talk dragons. I never understood the multiple dragons. I guess if you really were going to paint two, but there's such an investment of time. Now you paint a lot of them, Kerniko, so I can see you doing it. But I don't know that I would ever get two dragons. Two of a dragon. Although I guess I do have two, inadvertently, I got two Nether Mauls and two Maldrakars. But that was because I ended up getting the Bones version, or having the Bones version on order, but then I had the opportunity to get the resin version. And I jumped at the chance to get the resin version, because if I'm going to paint a dragon, I really enjoy painting on resin. So I ended up with two accidentally. Not purposefully. So that's a beautiful dark blue. I do love Ultramarine Shadow. It is really thin. Sorry about that. I was over eager to get this new idea blocked in, and so I just didn't thicken up my paint very much. That means it's taking a few coats, but it's letting me judge kind of the depth of the color well. So let us play around. Let that dry, and then let's put green over the top. And actually, we've got the green right next to it, so we can do both. This will be a fun experiment. So let's get our blue shadows blocked in on the wing here. The nice thing about some of these newer dragons is that the scales are nice and big. And I like that because it means that, you know, there are relatively few spots where you're doing tiny detail, right? There's a lot of spots where you're doing bigger chunky detail, and that's faster as far as like if you were trying to paint scale by scale, which I tend to do. Doing a bit of wet blending here just to get that shadow in. You know, if that works for you, Kerniko, then it's fair. All's fair in love and dragons. So we've got our green shaded with our blue, and you can see that the blue kind of disappears. Like, you can see it there, but it definitely is going over the top of the green and becoming kind of a really dark teal. And it's not keeping a lot of its vibrancy at all. And this is the same thing that's going to happen if you paint a brighter color over like a black primer, or a darker base coat in general, you're going to lose that vibrant color. They're going to visually layer over each other and create something different. Just touching this up while it's drying. We're almost ready to go with our green over our blue, but this gives me time to put some of the blue over the green. I do need to mix up yet more green because dragon. Those of you who are multiple dragon households can absolutely indulge in more than one version of a dragon. And, you know, also if you have kids and you know your kids are going to want to paint the dragon, but you want to paint the dragon yourself, then it's always good to have an extra dragon to preserve domestic tranquility. Unless you have multiple kids and they all want to paint the dragon. Then you might need more dragons. Need to get some water in this. There. Too much color to be a proper black dragon? If it looks black, it's black, folks. Man, people are so silly. I mean, bottom line is, if you like it, it's awesome. When people put their art critic hats on, or their game critic hats on, I just kind of go, wah. Hopefully there were as many people who liked it as those who said it was not a proper black dragon. Proper indeed. Have you seen one? Just silliness. Absolute silliness. All right, let's get a little bit more actual pure phantom glow mixed up too, because I'm going to start highlighting soon. And that's exciting. And a little bit of white into that. One for chromatic, one for metallic. Have fun, Glocker. Not sure what you mean that we're getting into miniatures. We always paint miniatures on this show. I was painting this guy before. Teal, purple, and red on him. Ah, well. Just don't let it get to you. People can be critics. Let's see what I can do with this. All right, let's try to do a little bit more. Let's grab our green and try to put it over the blue instead of the other way around. Now I thinned it, so you're still going to get a little bit of a fade, but you want that because you're layering it up. I think I did it wrong, guys. I think the way to go is actually to base coat in blue. I may have to reprime this. I should have foreseen this, but instead I was just like, I'm just going to play. And playing is good. Like, playing is how you really learn stuff. Like, you can sit there and theorize in your chair and go, I bet this is going to happen. But until you actually get in there and work with it and play with it and let yourself be wrong, it just, like, lets you internalize stuff better. Like, you have a better understanding then of why it works, how it works, how to make it work. Like, because this green is higher coverage, it doesn't take me very long to highlight it up to the point where it's looking like green. And I like how it looks as I'm highlighting it this way. Black panthers can look purple or blue in the sun too. Depending on the skylight, depending on if they're in the sun or if they're in the shade and what the skylight's like. Black can go very chameleon, depending. Now let's do what I did before and do a little bit of white underpaint on one of these. Then take over the green. And that really brings up the green very sharply. That's nice, actually. Yeah, I did this wrong. I did it wrong, guys. I did it wrong, but now we know. Now we know the true path. We have the true path. I like this green, the blue-green that I'm getting. So really what I should have done is do a little test scale section first. So make a mental note to yourselves. Now that you've seen me make this mistake, when you're thinking about doing interesting color transitions on your dragon, unless you just want to jump in and just like, wee, you know, like you can totally do that. It may cost you some time in the end, but totally do. But think about taking just a little bit of scales on the underside of something and seeing, like, you know, trying out your couple different color ideas. Because especially when you're trying to do kind of a fade from one color to the next, it can be tricky, right? Like you've seen how tricksy it can be on this stream. But it didn't take me long at all once I came back on the underside of this wing and decided to just split it into two sections and do them both differently. It didn't take me long at all to like figure out what effect I was more going for. So I like to call them mistakes. You know what? Once you get out of the negative mindset with the word mistake, like I think it's something that humans could stand to do. So I rather than rephrasing my mistakes, because I already rephrased them in my head, they are explorations and learning opportunities, but I like to use the word mistake because I like to like de-aggressivize it. It's like saying Voldemort. Mistake is Voldemort. If we just get like to just be more familiar with the word mistake and not let it like be a big, huge, bad thing, like I think it'd be just good. So I'm going to say that I made a mistake and I'm going to own it. And then I'm going to say, but easy to fix. So this is now now that I'm here, I'm going to essentially do the color transition that I thought I wanted to do. And I'm going to judge whether, you know, whether it works or not. I'm going to actually paint over a lot of this stuff in blue though. The green here. Just to get it out of my field of view so that I can better judge this stuff. If I have this bright green right next to it, it's going to bug me. So I'm going to paint over it. But you can see that, you know, painting the blue over the green here darkens it down. You lose a lot of the vibrancy. There. Okay. Yeah, I think that it's sometimes helpful, Grand Oracle, to do that, to rephrase mistake as opportunity, like, right? Especially when you're first starting to struggle, you know, if you're really struggling with the word. It makes sense. However you can reframe it in your head. But once you've got it reframed, I think, like, just using the word mistake and just saying, yeah, it's all right, though. It's okay to make mistakes, folks. It's all right. It's okay. Unlike what, you know, our society likes to tell us, especially in corporate America. But it's not, you're not alone there. Like if you're in academia or any other field like that, mistakes tend to be the dirty word, right? But here in art, I am going to own my mistakes. And then I'm going to play with what I am now doing and decide I really like it. So I'm underpainting again with a little bit of white here, just to make my green go on a little bit like more pure. And I can also do these little spiny things. Now these spiny things definitely look like they are claws. You can see that they've got kind of a root, like a rim around them. So I feel like the spiny things are definitely claws. This one is a little claw trying to grow. So I'm going to just get these guys kind of blocked in as a separate color. Some of the scales definitely look like they're just big scales, and some of them like look like they're actually rooted and they could be claws. So it's, and the sculpting style changes on the model, so it's like kind of a question mark what you want to, how you want to paint them, or by which rules you want to paint them. I'll probably start one way and decide again, just like with this, if there's a better way to do it. So just a little bit of touch to make these a little bit something different. Ooh, purple carrots, nice. Yeah, because that's, unfortunately, that's how it's framed. Like, if you make a mistake, oh my god, the world is ending, right? And I feel like that's just really counterproductive. We all make mistakes, and they're not terrible. It's not bad to make mistakes. If I hadn't made this mistake, like, it would probably take a while for me to, like, internalize what I did and why it didn't work. But because I did the mistake and I worked through it and I tried something different and it worked, it lets me just internalize it. I'm gonna remember this rule better, and I'm gonna understand why it didn't work better. Yeah, totally, guys. Make mistakes. Run around, make glorious mistakes. I think there's a couple of writers who have, Neil Gaiman's Make Good Art speech, I believe. He's like, make mistakes, make glorious mistakes. And then get excited because you learned something. Now, the downside is, once you've painted over this base blue, you've kind of lost it. And if you paint over too much of it, you're going to have to take your white and bring it back underneath. So I need to be careful about how much green I put on here. If it's too much, I'm kind of in a bind, and I'm going to need to underpaint my blue with white again to get that back. Ooh, I think I hear rain. I do hear rain. Awesome. Yay! We get so little rain here. I really love a rainy day. I didn't think it was going to rain hard enough for me to hear it. So I'm just lightening up now the edges of these scales. Experience, education, and stupidity, huh? I don't know. Sometimes it takes a long time to learn things. I don't think we should put a cap on how many times you can make mistakes. I mean, come on. Dating? That's really all I need to say. There are people out there, maybe even, yours truly, who made plenty of mistakes, in dating various people when they were younger. And I don't think that I should have been labeled stupid after 3. I think we all deserve more strikes than that. So I'm going to say you can make as many mistakes painting miniatures as you want. I give you all permission. I will never call you stupid for making mistakes, unless you like breathe in toxic fumes too often and give yourself brain damage, then maybe. But, You sent it for me last week, Nico. Thank you. So yeah, bringing up the edges here with a lighter, kind of a green and white mix, but I'm going to transition up to this aqua. Actually, why don't I just try to do that? Let's just stop mucking around with underpainting and go straight up to Phantom Glow plus white. I wondered if I might need to use Surf Aqua as a kind of intermediary step, but I'm going to go with this instead. Since this is a light color, it might not kind of come out that it's Phantom Glow like right out the gate. I'm curious to see if it actually shows up the color. Yes, happy accidents, Minky King. Yes, I'm sorry. I do love rain because we're in a drought. And I love the sound of rain on my roof. And I wish that we got more of it. So I'm pretty happy. So because this color is so light compared to the color under it, even though it has a strong color, it's mostly reading as white, which is interesting. You know, that's kind of just a thing that happens. As I layer it up and as I maybe expand its footprint a little bit to become bigger, it will begin to read as what it really is, which is that pale blue. See, once I make it big enough, it stops looking like an off-white and it starts looking like the color it is. Oh, nice, Hedstrom. Congrats on the free gift sub. Aw, thank you. Very nice, Hedstrom. Wow, look at that. That is wonderful. Thank you so much. What a nice and generous person. Everybody thank Hedstrom. We really appreciate it. As we sit here working on our kind of color shift scales to see if I can make this work. It's always a question. Can I make it work? Or do I need to go back to the ye old workstation? There we go. Plenty of love. Yeah. Thank you so much. And Kariniko sending rain. Rain to California, specifically. Specifically to California. You might have to go across Asia for that. I don't know. I don't know what the closest... I guess it is closer to send it across the whole U.S., Kariniko. But I appreciate it. I was actually surprised. Like, I don't have a lot of experience with the weather here, obviously, since I just moved 2 years ago. But the year that I moved on... I came in on April 7th, and that was the last day of rain until, like, December. So I guess I'm always in kind of a surprised but grateful mindset when we get rain later than April 7th. No rain to Quindy, please. Okay, so good deal. Hello, Karina Veris. All right, so let's bring up this. I'm liking this, guys. Do you like this? Do you like this effect? Like if we cover up our thing, is that kind of neat? Do you think it's kind of neat? I'm almost tempted to throw some purple in there, like in the shadows. I think it's kind of neat. I think this could be fun. And I think as, right now I'm just playing with just seeing how to get both green and blue on the scale. But when I'm working on the greater dragon, I do feel like I will like drop the blue, go to green, and then green up to teal. So let's go over here. Let me finish out these little scales, and then I'm almost at a point where I like them. Oh no, we don't want Quindy swept out into the Gulf. Yeah, rain is nice. Rain is nice here. We're just in the eternal drought. So yeah, I want to transition this interestingly when we go to different parts of the model. Like on the upper parts of the dragon, I think I want to go green and then go up to the teal. And mostly lose the blue in the shadows. And keep the blue stronger where it's away from the light. That's kind of what I'm feeling. But yeah, I do like this. This is kind of cool. I think I can do it now. I think I know how to do it. So what we learned is that if you do want to paint like kind of a color shift, make sure you start with your dark color. If you want that color to really show up, you should start with that so that you can get that vibrant color in the shadows. So like if you were doing a red-purple fade on a dragon, I would then start with a vibrant purple and bring your red up over the top of that. And definitely do what I did and put a little bit of underpainting of white in if you want your red to really, really, really pop. But, so that's pretty cool. That's kind of what I wanted. It's getting there. It's getting there. So that in mind, I'm going to go back to my green here. And I'm going to highlight my green with my aqua and see what I think of that. So I am going to grab some of my blue though, and this time I'm going to purposefully use it as just a darkening agent to bring in like a liner, essentially, liner effect underneath these big scales. And I can do a little bit of wet blending with the green to blend that in a little bit better. So darkening that down. If you really want, the thing is, okay, so understand Kodiak that the brighter you get, the more transparent you get with purple usually, because the pigments that go into making purple are really, really see-through. So if you want a really bright purple, go over white with it. And probably the purples I like the most for that, but probably if you want a darker purple, then the one I like the most is Monarch Purple. Where is it? Do I have it? Yeah. So Monarch's kind of a grapey color. And it looks dark, but it is actually pretty bright over white. Clear purple is the epitome of a bright purple in MSP, $90.99. But that is very see-through. So undercoat with white and probably put on a couple of coats. Also, the more you build up purple, because it's naturally a bit darker and that's the blue pigment in it, it will generally, you'll lose that pop, that brightness as it layers up. As you put more and more layers on it, it's just going to come out to more of a dark but rich color. Highlight it with like something like magenta or like this color, Runic Glow, makes a great highlight for purple. Purple's tricky, so I'm trying to say. Purple is tricky. All right, I'm gonna actually use this intermediary color now to bring up, I mixed a Dragon Green with Phantom Glow to kind of get an intermediary tealy color, and I'm gonna start popping that on here to see if I can bring it up and build it up. For big flat scales like this, I tend to suggest some texture by using kind of almost a lining up. Got a bit of grit there. There. Sorry, I have to patch up that little patch. Also need to remember to keep my liner color, or my primer that I mixed up, full of water so that I can actually get it off of this palette later. Ooh, wow, it's 11. Icy Violet is pretty but not bright. I mean, it's a blue purple. It is fairly, I guess it depends on what you're trying to get. Gotta layer that up and fix my little blurf there. But we're almost out of time, and that's sad. So I'm going to try to layer up just this one little scale here. So often I will do like streaky marks going up there like that. Bring it in more solid around the edges. It's kind of like the traditional layering brushstroke, but leaving some texture. Then I'll bring in my Spectral Glow. I think I need to actually make this color go farther up the scale. Bring in some blue, just a little blue. Getting the green to highlight up to teal is interesting because it's very counterintuitive. Because usually when you're highlighting green, you go up warmer toward yellow and not toward teal. So this is where I was curious to see if it would actually work without the blue in there real strong. I did pick the greenest of the pale kind of aqua colors I've got. So Phantom Glow is really green. It's an interesting color. All right, Karinico, you have a good time. We'll miss you. I don't know what I'll be doing tomorrow. Maybe I'll play with the base. This is all just me playing with crap. Until we get a head. Then we'll actually paint the head. But this is letting me work out my colors, so... Yeah, it's interesting. It's interesting. The green, the blue will play with the green-blue fade, of course, much better than the green will. So now I have to question, should I just be painting everything blue, highlighting it with some Phantom Glow and glazing green over it? Like, will that give me a more interesting effect? This is where playing with colors can get really fun. Where when you're just like, what works? What doesn't work? You guys usually are only ever seeing me paint like perfect. So I'm glazing the green over this right now to see how that works. Yep, Crowley. Yeah, I'll wrap it. I just wanted to get this a little bit more set on this one scale. Paint a little bit more blue over it. Fix my green on this one. There. So I kind of like that. That's interesting. So maybe I should have just highlighted these guys and then painted green over the top. Maybe that was the way to go. Interesting. Very interesting. So I'm not sold on this one. I think I actually like the blue-green better than I like this. I think I'm more into it. So I think I may have to do a reprime and a blue base on this dragon, which is going to make it dangerously like Michael Proctor's version. At least at first, until we start throwing green all over it. So it would be much more natural to use a teal to highlight and not to go into this green and then back to blue. And that's the color is just kind of going, what are you trying to do visually? But that scale's not bad. I have to ask myself, what am I really trying to do? What effect am I really going for? Yes, congrats on the house for sure. Even if moving into it with a toddler is interesting. Alrighty. Oh, dark blue and red. All right, well, good. Then we'll be very different. All right, so yeah, so this paint stream was a little bit weird, and it's all about experimenting. I had a mental concept of what I wanted to do, which was a blue to green fade that went up again to aqua, which is a really weird way to do it. But I can see how it works on both sides, and now I need to decide what's more important to me. So notice that the color I base coated with is really the primary color here. Like it really becomes a major player unless you color over it all. So what I could do if I wanted to minimize the blue back here is I could use even a little bit more green. But yeah, and then here the green is very much the major player. Even though I'm covering it over with aqua and blue, it's still, it's there, right? It's the base coat. So again, this is an example then of how your base coat is going to impact your results, even though you're using the same dang paints. I'm painting these with the same darn paints that I'm painting these with. And the biggest difference is what you start with. So that should be your takeaway from this, guys. As far as, you know, when you're trying to paint one color over another, your base count matters hugely. Huge. Yeah, I like the blue base. I think it's really cool looking. So that could be, I think that'll be what we end up doing. So I'll end up priming over the top of my green here, but I did want to try it and see if I liked it. But I don't like that nearly as much as I like this. This looks like it's color shift almost. And the other one doesn't approach that for me because I lose the blue. So, all right. So what we did today is we talked a bit about base coating dragons, why dragons are a pain, how to get less pain. Talked a little bit about like the blending thing that I was doing on the wings here. Most of this is just trial and error to try to figure out what we want to do on this dragon. Sometimes you just need to jump in and figure it out by painting a few scales here and there. And then we experimented with 2 different ways to use the same set of colors, but get 2 very different effects, depending on what our base was over the white primer. So that was all of our fun today, guys. Thank you very much. Josh is on today at 2 p.m. Central Time. Tomorrow we'll be back. If I have a dragon head, I think I know enough now to start painting that dragon head, so we'll do it. Otherwise, I'll probably prime over this, and maybe we'll get on to doing more of the awesome blueness, which I really like. Yeah, so that's what we're up to. And I hope you all have a great day, and I will see you again tomorrow. Thanks all.